Near the coast of Queensland, Australia, lies a sinister secret, the Devil's Pool. Its seemingly ordinary exterior masks a chilling history of numerous fatalities, each unusually distinct from the last. James Bennett and some of his friends heard about the lore of the pool, but didn't believe the narrative.
It's well known for being a dangerous area. There's been a lot of resources put into fencing that area off.
I wouldn't have gone into it in a lifetime.
Before we get started, a word of caution. This video is not for the faint-hearted, and viewer discretion is strongly recommended. A quiet little town nestled in Queensland, Australia was the home to the Bennetts. Andrew, Judy, their daughter, and their 23-year-old son, James Bennett. James was a rather remarkable individual. He was only 23 at the time and was known as the Bennett's son and a commended member of the Australian Defence Force. James had committed himself to the noble pursuit of defending his nation, plunging headfirst into the rigorous training and discipline that defined the Royal Australian Navy. When he made the decision to enlist, he wanted to stay in the military for a long time. He had a good balance between the military life and his passions, which was mostly researching. He was just one of those people that brought a lot of positive energy, and it felt good to be around him, and he helped a lot of people. But he was in the Navy for about 5 years, and in 2008, he found a new calling, something that was a little bit more dangerous, but he felt that it was really important. And this new position that he had was aboard the HMAS Norman, a minesweeper of high regard based out of Sydney. A mine hunter is a naval vessel that seeks and detects and destroys individual naval mines. This was a big deal. The minesweepers clear mined areas as a whole without prior detection of mines. This job was intense because they were going into areas filled with mines. This was a risky job, but you also had to be extremely intelligent, so it was perfect for James. This new venture brought challenges for him, but James was able to overcome them, and his ability to dedicate himself to studying and learning more about his craft allowed him to excel. And it didn't take long for him to become a very respected naval officer. One of James' favorite things to do was to go camping and to spend as much time in nature as possible when he was on leave from the military. He would get together with his friends and go on different adventures together. One of the places that he heard about but had never been to before was called Babinda Boulders. It was nestled about 4 miles away from Babinda, Australia, and is known as a notoriously dangerous place. It is popular, but there's signs everywhere and railings to keep people out of the water. This place hides more than just tranquil waters. When you get there, you find a communal parking area and a beautiful picnic spot. There's asphalted pathways, and the most ominously named place in the scenic reserve is called Devil's Pool Walk. It meanders downstream along the Babinda Creek. When you walk down the path, you'll encounter various observation points providing views of the granite formations, the big boulders, and the serene pools. But this place is a deceptive playground. Surrounding the area and the pools is a lush rainforest, which is absolutely beautiful. It's like you transported to a different planet that is unlike anything you've ever seen before. A safety rail surrounds Devil's Pool Lookout, a viewpoint with an unsettling past. Signs around the platform scream a dire warning. Pretty much everything here tells you to stay away. The cautionary notices highlight the grave danger lurking below the safety rail and the narrow section of creek where many lives have tragically been snuffed out. Strategically placed, the warning signs are hard to miss. They pretty much stare every visitor in the face. An echo of these somber advisories when you actually get into the entrance to the Devil's Pool Walk. It's as if the creek actually whispers, tread carefully. Imagine yourself being there. This place has warning signs all over, it's extremely beautiful. You don't really know what you're doing, and you've heard a lot about this place. Do you stay or do you leave? There's two things that set the town of Babinda apart. Firstly, its name. Babinda itself translates to mountain, considering it's cradled between Queensland's twin titans, Mount Bartle Frere and Mount Bellenden Kerr. Secondly, it holds a record. Babinda is Australia's rainiest town, annually drenched with about 160 inches or an astounding 13 feet of rainfall. It's pretty much raining all the time here, but it is a rainforest, so that makes sense. and there's also a countless amount of waterfalls and underground passages that are irresistible to explore to adventurers. But the coolest place out of this whole area is the Babinda Boulders. It's what everyone comes to see. The town has an old legend surrounding it that a lot of people believe in. The lore whispers for forbidden love of the tragic demise of two young lovers. Before the Western influence, the Yidindi tribe thrived here. The tribal chief Waranu was betrothed to a youthful Ulana, but she had other plans and vanished one fateful night, eloping with Daiga, a tribal warrior. Enraged, Waranu unleashed his men on the couple. The lovers dove into the raging waters as Warnu's men closed in on them from the Babinda River's corner. Daiga, lost to the depths, never emerged. He drowned down there. Realizing her lover's fate, Ulana anguish echoes across the valley, shattering boulders and stirring the waters into a violent frenzy. She too disappeared amidst the turmoil. Following this tragedy, the Yidindi tribe members began mysteriously dying near the water. Once the fearless warriors succumbed to dread, hunted by visions of Ulana dragging them into the depths. While the legend has faded, the fatalities haven't. Over the past century, these seemingly calm waters have swallowed 20 lives. Some whisper of the curse, a supernatural pull, compelling young men into the treacherous waters. They speak of Ulana's spirit, luring victims to their watery graves. This is why the locals call this place the Devil's Pool. On June 10, 1933, the pool claimed its first documented victim. A local man was drowned into the whirlpool at Babinda Waterfall's base. His body was never recovered, and it was theorized he was trapped in the underground labyrinth of tunnels within the creek. The local newspaper would mention Babinda again in 1940. This time it was the death of John Dominic English. James and his friends were not aware of the deaths or the history of this place before they went there. The gathering occurred in the late afternoon of November 30th, 2008. James was with his friends Adam Farley, John Tuola, and Soy Tuola. James went by himself and his other friends took their car. But they all ended up at the boulders around the same time. It was kind of a foreshadowing that James had arrived independently. The adventure started pretty much like any other adventure that James went on with his friends. They took a stroll down the stream from the car park and the picnic area, and then they decided to head down the Devil's Pool walk. There was a winding track that led them to the Devil's Pool. It was asphalted, but there was railings on both sides. The rainforest was closing in on them. They could hear the water roaring, and it was also pretty humid at the time. John was in front of the group, and he was the one that was the most cautious and reserved. So when he saw the warning sign that said, "Do not go down into the water," he took that very seriously and turned to his friends and told them, including James, "Hey guys, we're definitely not going into the water. It's cool that we're here and we're going to have fun, but we're not going to do anything dangerous because look what's around us. We should really just be safe." James and his friends agreed, yeah, it's a good idea. We should just do what we're going to do, have fun, and then we'll go home and no problem. But soon after they talked about that amongst themselves, they noticed that there was some kids jumping into the water on the opposite side of the creek. There were no adults over there. They were just by themselves going into the water and getting out fine, and there was no issues, and they were having a lot of fun. And this kind of made James and his friends think, hey, if they're doing this, maybe we should too. What those kids were doing was pretty dangerous. They were jumping from rock to rock. The pool of water beneath them was really calm, so it seemed like everything was fine. John was really upset that the kids were doing this. He thought it was ridiculous that they had no adult supervision, and he knew that if they slipped off that rock and went into the water, they would be in a life or death situation instantly. And then there was a few backpackers that showed up to the area and they were watching the kids as well. It was a little bit weird because it seemed like they were getting ready to go down into the water near the kids, but it was obvious that they weren't with the kids. They were doing their own thing. So I wasn't really talking that much to the group, and they noticed that he was looking around, and it was obvious he was considering going under the rail and into the water. Without showing any reckless disregard for danger in the area with these kids jumping around, Soy decided to go under the rail. As soon as he did that, he motioned for everybody, hey, let's just go down to the water and see what's going on. Just to be clear, you were not supposed to go down here at all. It was completely closed off and labeled as the Forbidden Zone. Then they thought about the possibility of swimming, despite the warnings. Finally, John had enough of this and he wanted to get out of there and proposed a safer alternative. He wanted to go back to the picnic area where they first came in, and that is where you're allowed to swim. So he pled his case with James and his other friends. What John was saying made sense, so they were going to go ahead, and as they were making their way out, they saw something up the stream that caught their attention, and they wanted to take a closer look. What they saw was a large rock that protruded from the boulder, and it was a calm area that looked like it was going to be okay for swimming. They didn't know that even though it seemed peaceful on the surface, this was an extremely dangerous place in the creek, and the locals who knew this area referred to it as the washing machine. After the incident, Adam later shared his initial impressions with the police, stating that the spot had no dangerous vibes. And the group unanimously decided to go swimming there because of the picturesque scene. When they got up there, they initially perched themselves on a large rock, and then they pulled out some adult beverages and started partaking in that. However, the tranquility of the environment was on the precipice of shattering into a million pieces. James and John decided to go into the water. They were just going to go in real quick and then come right back out. Adam, watching his friends explore, felt the invincible tug of camaraderie. He decided to go in as well, and he chose a nearby spot in the water where there was more of a gentle outflow from the larger, more serene pool that cascaded into the churning mass of water of the washing machine, which is where they were on top of the boulders just earlier. There he sat on a rock and he put his feet just dangling above the water, feeling the cold droplets of the splashing current against his skin. James saw Adam and decided to swim down to him in the stream and across the pools. All of a sudden, as he was swimming down, the water started to move him faster than he could swim. He was starting to lose control. Then he plunged into the washing machine. His body disappeared beneath the water's surface, and his strong strokes that worked earlier in the calmer sections were useless now. The water had complete control over him, and he could do nothing. Adam, who was just about to jump into the water to join James, noticed what was happening, and he freaked out. At this point, James was screaming and was absolutely frantic because he knew that he needed to get out of the water. He was being pulled backward towards the treacherous whitewater at the downstream end of the pool. That was the worst area that he could be in, so he did not want to go down there. Adam's heart was pounding out of his chest as he watched James try to clutch onto an overhanging branch that was stuck out into the water. This was potentially his only lifeline that was within his reach. Then the branch snapped, and there was a loud echo heard around the gorge as he broke the branch free from its perch, and James just continued to go down the creek. Adam knew that he had to do something, so he sprang into action. He sprinted around the pool's edge, moving towards James' last location. There was no way to see James, if he was under the water, behind a boulder, where he was, if he was pulled into the labyrinth. And then James popped up, but it was only one of his arms and his head. His outstretched fingers were barely breaching the surface in a desperate, heart-rending plea for help. Summoning every bit of courage he had, Adam moved as close to the water's edge as he could manage, extending his leg towards his friend in a desperate hope to maybe have James grab it and pull him out. However, no sooner had he done so than James' struggle ceased abruptly. After two final valiant attempts to fight against the whirlpool's grip, he disappeared beneath the surface, swallowed whole by the washing machine. James' desperate cry before he got sucked under shattered the serenity of the moment. Still trying to help his friend, Adam found a 6-foot branch and threw it into the pool out of panic and fear to try to help James. His alarm served as a jarring wake-up call for the rest of their group and other visitors who were blissfully unaware of the unfolding catastrophe. They began a frantic search for James in the surrounding pools. Their previously leisure exploration turned into a life-or-death rescue mission. Without losing a moment, they contacted emergency services. John and Soy, their faces pale and their hearts pounding, hurried back to the picnic area, tasked with the grim duty of guiding the responders back to the scene of their friend's harrowing disappearance. At approximately 3 p.m., a chilling call pierced the mundane routine of the Babinda police station. Heavy with the sense of urgency, the caller's voice relayed the catastrophe unfolding at the boulders. It was an emergency. One of their own was missing in the treacherous waters. Swiftly, the officers sprang into action, their training overriding their sense of adrenaline coursing through their veins. Upon their arrival at the scene, a siren-filled chorus echoed through the wooded area, announcing their arrival. Following closely were the EMTs, their faces set in grim determination. They proceeded down to the worn walking track, their boots crunching on the gravel towards the first viewing platform, the command center for this dire rescue mission. Adam, his voice hoarse from shouting, told the sad sequence of events to the police. His hands shook slightly as he gestured toward the menacing washing machine. Several anxiety-ridden minutes had ticked by since the last sighting of James. The air was thick with tension as everyone on the site continued their desperate search. As the gravity of the situation sank in, the officers immediately requested the swift water rescue team from the Queensland Fire and Rescue Service. Babinda State Emergency Service was also contacted, and their expertise was deemed critical for a search of this nature. Upon receiving the distress signal, each unit responded swiftly and was promptly deployed to aid in the strenuous efforts to locate James. Despite their relentless efforts, the search of the rapids was severely hindered by the harsh conditions confronting them. This was hazardous terrain, and the water's relentless churns made their efforts feel like battling a formidable, invisible force. James's two close friends, Adam and John, provided a crucial testimony to the police, painting a vivid picture of James' state of mind before his plunge into the washing machine. According to their account, James did not display any signs of intoxication. While it was true that he had indulged, it was a negligible amount, approximately equivalent to less than one serving. In the tense days that followed, the rescue crew tirelessly combed the banks of Babinda Creek. Their faces bore the strain of prolonged hours and the heart-wrenching task of recovery rather than a rescue. It was a silent testimony to their unwavering hope that the unfortunate reality of their mission could be a body recovery. On the morning of Tuesday, December 2nd, just as the sun began to crest its pale light over the tumultuous creek, the officers involved in the search came upon a heartbreaking sight. Bobbing against a rocky ledge in a deeper pool, ominously known as the Devil's Pool, was what appeared to be a lifeless body. It was about 150 meters downstream from where James had been last seen. The atmosphere was heavy with solemn acceptance as police divers entered the pool, their objective to clear and to secure the body. Hours ticked by, and at about 4 p.m., the retrieval team achieved their heartbreaking goal. James's body was delicately extracted from the relentless grip of the creek. As the narrative unfolded, the astute coroner, Dr. Bodarelli, came to a grim conclusion in his report. Given the circumstances and the autopsy results, the cause of James' death was consistent with the unforgiving, relentless nature of drowning. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today, and I appreciate you watching until the end. If you found this story both fascinating and heartbreaking, be sure to show some love to the like button and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this. I hope to see you at the next one.